Good evening. I've decided that for the sake of continuity in my own mind, I'm going to stop splitting up stories across different videos unless there's a story that's like really long. Anyway, where were we? Jikininki. Right. Last time. Now, Reverend Sir, much as we regret to leave you alone, we must bid you farewell. By the rule of our village, none of us can stay here after midnight. We beg, kind sir, that you will take every care of your honorable body, while we are unable to attend you. And if you happen to hear or see anything strange during our absence, please tell us of the matter when we return in the morning. All then left the house, except the priest, who went to the room where the dead body was lying. The usual offerings had been set before the corpse, and a small Buddhist lamp, tomyo, was burning. The priest recited the service and performed the funeral ceremonies, after which he entered into meditation. So meditating he remained through several silent hours, and there was no sound in the deserted village. But when the hush of the night was at its deepest, there noiselessly entered a shape, vague and vast, and in the same moment Muso found himself without power to move or speak. He saw that shape lift the corpse, as with hands devour it more quickly than a cat devours a rat, beginning at the head and eating everything. The hair and the bones and even the shroud, and the monstrous thing, having thus consumed the body, turned to the offerings and ate them also. Then it went away, as mysteriously as it had come. When the villagers returned next morning, they found the priest awaiting them at the door of the headman's dwelling. All in turn saluted him, and when they had entered and looked about the room, no one expressed any surprise at the disappearance of the dead body and the offerings. But the master of the house said to Muso, "Reverend sir, you have probably seen unpleasant things during the night. All of us were anxious about you, but now we are very happy to find you alive and unharmed. Gladly we would have stayed with you, if it had been possible. But the law of our village, as I told you last evening, obliges us to quit our houses after a death takes place, and to leave the corpse alone. Whenever this law has been broken, heretofore, some great misfortune has followed. Whenever it is obeyed, we find that the corpse and the offerings disappear during our absence. Perhaps you have seen the cause." Then Muso told of the dim and awful shape that had entered the death chamber to devour the body and offerings. No person seemed to be surprised by his narration, and the master of the home observed, "What you have told us, Reverend Sir, agrees with what has been said about this matter from ancient time." Muso then inquired, "Does not the priest on the hill sometimes perform the funeral service for the dead?" "What priest?" the young man asked. "The priest who yesterday evening directed me to this village," answered Muso. "I called at his anjitsu on the hill yonder. He refused me lodging, but told me the way here." The listeners looked at each other, as in astonishment, and, after a moment of silence, the master of the house said, "Reverend sir, there is no priest, and there is no anjitsu on the hill. For the time of many generations there has not been any resident priest in this neighborhood." Muso said nothing more on the subject, for it was evident that his kind hosts supposed him to have been deluded by some goblin. but after having bidden them farewell and obtained all necessary information as to his road, he determined to look again for the hermitage on the hill, and so to ascertain whether he had really been deceived. He found the Anjitsu without any difficulty, and this time its aged occupant invited him to enter. When he had done so, the hermit humbly bowed before him, exclaiming, "Ah, I am ashamed. I am very much ashamed. I am exceedingly ashamed." "You need not be ashamed for having refused me shelter," said Musso. "You directed me to the village yonder, where I was very kindly treated, and I thank you for that favor." "I can give no man shelter," the recluse made answer, "and it is not for the refusal that I am ashamed. I am ashamed only that you should have seen me in my real shape, for it was I who devoured the corpse and the offerings last night before your eyes. Know, reverend sir, that I am a Jikininki, an eater of human flesh. Have pity upon me and suffer me to confess the secret fault by which I became reduced to this condition. A long, long time ago, I was a priest in this desolate region. There was no other priest for many leagues around, so, in that time, the bodies of the mountain folk who died used to be brought here, sometimes from great distances, in order that I might repeat over them holy service. But I repeated the service and performed the rites only as a matter of business. I thought only of the food and the clothes that my sacred profession enabled me to gain. And because of this selfish impiety, I was reborn, immediately after my death, into the state of a Jikininki. Since then, I have been obliged to feed upon the corpses of people who die in this district. Every one of them I must devour in the way you saw last night. Now, reverend sir, let me beseech you perform a sekagi service for me. Help me by your prayers, I entreat you, so that I may be soon able to escape from this horrible state of existence." No sooner had the hermit uttered his petition than he disappeared, and the hermitage itself also disappeared from the same instant. And Muso Kokushi found himself kneeling alone in the high grass beside an ancient and moss-grown tomb of the form called Gorin Ishi, which seemed to be the tomb of a priest. Yeah, we can do one more. Mujina. On the Akasaka Road in Tokyo, there is a slope called Ki no Kunizaka, which means the slope of the province of Kii. I do not know why it is called the slope of the province of Kii. On one side of this slope, you see an ancient moat, deep and very wide, with high green banks rising up to some place of gardens, and on the other side of the road extend the long and lofty walls of an imperial palace. Before the era of street lamps and jinrikishan, this neighborhood was very lonesome after dark, and belated pedestrians would go miles out of their way rather than mount the Ki no Kunizaka alone after sunset. All because of a Mujina that used to walk there. Okay. A kind of badger. Certain animals were thought to be able to transform themselves and cause mischief for humans. So, a Mujina is that. The last man who saw the Mujina was an old merchant of the Kyobashi quarter who died about 30 years ago. This is the story as he told it. One night, at a late hour, he was hurrying up the Ki no Kunizaka when he perceived a woman crouching by the moat all alone and weeping bitterly. Fearing that she intended to drown herself, he stopped to offer her any assistance or consolation in his power. She appeared to be a slight and graceful person, handsomely dressed, and her hair was arranged like that of a young girl of good family. "O Jochu," he explained, approaching her. "O Jochu, do not cry like that. Tell me what the trouble is, and if there is any way to be of help to you, I shall be glad to help you." He really meant what he said, for he was a very kind man. But she continued to weep, hiding her face from him with one of her long sleeves. "O Jochu," he said, as gently as he could, please listen to me. This is no place for a young lady at night. Do not cry, I implore you. Only tell me how I may be of some help to you." Slowly she rose up, but turned her back to him, and continued to moan and sob behind her sleeve. He laid his hand lightly upon her shoulder and pleaded, "O Jochu, O Jochu, O Jochu, listen to me for one little moment, O Jochu, O Jochu." Then that O Jochu turned around and dropped her sleeve and stroked her face with her hand, and the man saw that she had no eyes or nose or mouth, and he screamed and ran away. Up Ki no Kunizaka he ran, and all was black and empty before him. On and on he ran, never daring to look back, and at last he saw a lantern, so far away that it looked like the gleam of a firefly, and he made for it. It proved to be only the lantern of an itinerant soba seller, soba as in soba noodles, who had set down his stand by the roadside. But any light and any human companionship was good after that experience, and he flung himself down at the feet of the soba seller, crying out, "Ah! Ah! Kore! Kore!" roughly exclaimed the soba man. "Here, what is the matter with you? Anyone hurt you?" "No, nobody hurt me," panted the other. "Only, Only scared you?" queried the peddler, unsympathetically. "Robbers?" Not robbers, gasped the terrified man. I saw a woman by the moat, and she showed me, I cannot tell you what she showed me." "Heh! Was it anything like this that she showed you?" cried the soba man, stroking his own face, which therewith became like unto an egg, and simultaneously the light went out. Now, I want to say that story, that last one, is a story that I heard a version of from someone else, just told by a campfire. The story of the woman with no face. It's one of my favorite ghost stories, and it's actually the reason why I bought this book and started this project. So I'm glad that we've gotten to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next in what other stories. Good night.